I remember the first time I saw a ternary statement, I thought I'm never going to use that, and now I use them all the time because it compresses those if statements. Well, today I want to show you 3 logical operators so that you can check things like if things are logically and, so if they're both together, logically or nullish coalescing. We'll also look at the new operator syntax that allows you to immediately check and then assign for each of those same scenarios. You ready? Let's go. Hey, what's up? My name is Chris and welcome to Coding in Public. Okay, so let's talk about logical operators. We'll start with the most basic things, then we'll look at the assignment operators that are also logical. You can see here I've got 2 different users. They have like theme set to light, tokens remaining as 0, deprecated feature enabled true for this one. This one has some other things like animations, custom colors. It has the same tokens remaining as well. Then I've got this default here for applying the theme, the animations, custom colors, and other things. So just trying to mimic some real life scenarios. First of all, if you look down this way, let's go ahead and try with this first one. We've got user 1 and user 2 both being passed in here. And what I want to do is essentially compress these statements with the logical operators. So in this case, we have is user.theme. So if this exists at all, so if it's a truthy value, then I want to console log this. So if we look up this way, this one has a theme, this one does not. So only user 1 should actually show that, right? So let's go ahead and run button run index, and you'll see user themes 1 is customized. But you'll see here, user 2 doesn't have that same statement, right? So we've already got this working. Let's now kind of move this over to be a logical operator. So this one you might be used to if you're used to writing React or JSX, anything like that, because this is used a decent amount. We could say user.theme, and just if that is a truthy value, then we'll console log everything we have right here. So that's easy enough. This is only going to be console logged if this is truthy. So in other words, if this user.theme is set to false, this would not console log, right? So it's not just that it exists, it's that it exists and it's a truthy value. If it's also set to 0, it wouldn't do that, right? So there's a couple little kind of edge cases you need to think about, but you can see how much more compressed this is than this if statement. Okay, so let's do the same thing down here. You'll see the logical OR operator limits to only falsy values. So only if it's not true, then we would go ahead and show something. So in this case, what we're doing is saying we're going to grab the person's name or the user's name here. We're going to say if they do not have a theme. Now notice again, this is a falsy value. So if it's undefined or null or 0, right, any of those kinds of items or false, anything that is falsy, then we will say not set, right? But if it is truthy, then it will show right here. So this is how we currently have it set using this ternary statement. But we can compress this a little bit more if we want to. So in other words, I can grab the user theme, and instead of having to repeat it here a couple different times, let's go ahead and copy this down just so we can kind of keep the original up there. And I'll paste this in here. And what we want in this case is user theme. If this exists, then go ahead and show that, console log that. Otherwise, let's use this one, this OR one, just use the not set. So this would work for the user theme, let's see, for this one. And here you'll see we don't have a theme. So let's go ahead and run this one more time. And you'll see that the theme is light, and here the theme is not set. So again, we've just compressed this a little bit, and usually you'll have some longer statements here, but you don't have to essentially repeat this, whether it's an if statement or a ternary in this case. You don't have to repeat user theme again. You just say show it if it's there, and if it's not there, then show this. So that's the logical OR operator. Finally, we've got the nullish coalescing operator. You may have seen this one before as well. It's almost like the logical OR, but it's got one little extra thing, and that is that it's limited only to null or undefined values. Now, when would you want to use this? Well, typically it's when a falsy value won't do. So here we've got user.tokens remaining. If I scroll up top here, you'll see they have 0 and this person has 10. Now 0 is a falsy value, which means it will evaluate to false. So right here, you'll see that this will say false. So if I were to use like the OR statement right here, then it would say that they have no tokens remaining, right? So in this case, what we want is we're checking first to see if it's undefined. If it's undefined, then we'll say no. Otherwise, we'll show how many tokens they have remaining. So that's kind of how you get around it using, again, here a ternary in this case. So let's copy this down. And we'll first of all show what happens if you use the OR symbol right here. Oops, let's get down one more. There we go. So here we can say user.tokens. Instead of saying undefined, we can just say if that doesn't exist, then show no, right? So we can shorten this a good bit just by using that logical OR. Now the trouble is this will evaluate this first time to 0. So you'll see here, this will say 0. So it'll say that they don't have anything, right? User has no tokens remaining. Now really what I want to see is that they have 0 tokens remaining. So let's go ahead and run this, and you'll see that that's the exact problem we get. So this first one says no tokens remaining. The second one says 10 tokens, right? Because 0 isn't coming through. It's a falsy value. So that's why we would want to use something like this nullish coalescing operator. And now if you were to run it one more time, you'll see now it says it has 0 tokens remaining. So it's actually checking only if there's null or undefined. So it's a nullish coalescing operator. Okay, so this is just kind of these basic logical operators, the double ampersand, this double pipe, and also we've got that nullish coalescing operator. So let's go ahead and comment these out. And I want to look at these logical assignment operators. I went over these first just to refresh you because these can be a little bit more complex if you're not ready to kind of think that way. So let's do the same thing. I'm going to uncomment these out and I'll make sure to link to all this below. And then let's use this if statement to start with. And typically, if you want to say like, hey, does this user have this deprecated feature? If they do, then I want to mark it as false. I don't want to mark this, like add this to the database for every user. I just want to make sure that we removed it or marked it as false. So again, I'm trying to kind of come up with the scenario that you might use on some kind of object here. So we're going to use the double ampersand, but notice we'll also use an equal sign right afterwards. This assigns a value if it does exist. All right, so if this does exist, if it's truthy, then what we want to do is mark this as true or false or whatever we want to do. Again, because we're talking about truthy statements, we have to recognize that things like 0 would evaluate to false, undefined, null, all those other things that would be falsy. So in this case, I'm only saying if they actually have this, it's enabled and it's marked as true. That's the only scenario in which this takes place. So if we go ahead and run this, let's run it right here. You'll see this is what we get. User 1, and you'll notice, is deprecated feature false now in this case. If I scroll back up, you'll see that they say true right here. Now, if I were to come down this way, we were to say false here, you'll notice now it's been added here because I added it right up top, but we don't add it if it isn't there originally, right? Right down here. So let's replace this now. And here you'll see with a longer name how much more compressed this is using this logical AND operator. So we'll say if this is there and it's marked as true or it's a truthy value, then I want to set this to false. And again, you see how much more compressed this is than this whole if statement. So let's go ahead and run this right here. And you'll see that's exactly what we get. User 1 is deprecated feature enabled is now set to false. Okay, so that's the first one. Let's now look at this logical or equals operator, this or assignment operator. So it assigns a value if it is falsy. So here, the way we'd have to do this, because custom colors might be true, or it might be 0, or it might be any other falsy value, I first check if it's undefined. That means it's not there. Now, you might also want to check if it's null, so we'll look at that in just a second. But for now, what we're going to do is come up top here. You'll see we've got custom colors, and we've also got no custom colors, right? So the first one doesn't have any custom colors, and the second one does have custom colors. What we want to do is if it does not have a custom colors, we want to add the default ones. So this is really nice if you want to add default things, but not override what somebody already has. Again, you'd have to do this big ol' if statement. And if I come inside here, you'll notice that if we run this now, this one gets these custom colors because it was undefined, and this one does not. So we can replace all of this here with a simple check right here. And in this case, what we want to do is, first of all, check to make sure it doesn't exist. If it already exists, then this will just be the same. This will never be reached. However, if this is falsy, so if it's 0 or false or undefined or null, any of those kinds of things, then in this case, it's going to assign the custom colors. So if I roll this again, it should look the exact same, and it does. And that's the power of this compressed logical assignment operator. Okay, finally, we've got the nullish coalescing operator. Again, this is just for null and undefined values only. All right, so I should probably make that more clear here. All right, there we go. Okay, so back over here, let's go ahead and use the long if statement. It's not that long, obviously, in this case, but I can come over here and we run this right here. What we're saying is if they have user animation and it's undefined. So I don't want to say if it's false. So if I just go like this, I'll say if it's marked as false, then it'll skip all this, right? But I only want to see if it doesn't exist altogether. So in other words, if they do not have it defined, then I want to use this right here. So this is another one of those scenarios where you can't just check if something is falsy because this is a true false value, the user animations. And up here, you'll see I've got nothing here. So this one should be assigned the default value, which is true. And I already have something here. This is set to false. So let's come down this way, and only that first one should be overwritten. And I will not overwrite the second user. So let's go ahead and run this one more time before we use that nullish coalescing operator assigner. All right. So right here, you can see that's exactly what we've got. Animations are now set to true here. This one remained untouched. So one more time, let's copy this right here. Let's comment this one out. And now let's use our new assignment operator. Here, we're just going to say if this exists, then use this. Only if this is null or undefined would you apply the new default animations. And again, we run it and it should be the exact same. I should mention before I go that these are all recently added to the language, although they enjoy pretty wide support. You can always check can I use if you're concerned about that. But I hope they find their way into your code base and you start to love them as much as I have. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Happy coding.